Welcome, welcome to the Unlock Your Blocks podcast. I'm so excited today because we have one of my favorite humans on as our guest. Trisha Camacho has over 2 decades of expertise in crafting patterns for live entertainment costumes. You guys, we're talking Broadway, we're talking Vegas, we're talking underwater shows, we're talking aerial shows. And she shares her wealth now, her wealth of expertise as a pattern making teacher. She literally is changing people's lives on a daily basis, enabling them to create whatever they want to create with their sewing machine. With a mission to simplify pattern making for aspiring designers, Trisha's Creative Costume Academy equips creatives with foundational principles to kickstart their design ventures, allowing them to design whatever they want and make it come to life. Tricia infuses her classes with practical sewing insights learned from her illustrious career. Her focus is not just on teaching pattern making and advanced sewing techniques, but also on making it accessible and enjoyable for all. And I personally know Tricia as a colleague, as a friend. She's an incredible human. And one of the things that I see her students saying about her all the time is how her approach makes this completely accessible for them. She lays everything out in a way that they've never seen, and it makes it so easy. And Trisha, I asked you to come on the show today because you are not only a phenomenal person in your industry, making people's dreams come true by putting the keys to pattern making in their hands, but you are actually an incredible example of a business owner and a career woman who has found a balance in the way that you approach everything. And I'm just so grateful to have you on the show today to share with us a little bit more about how you have done work on the inside of you that has allowed your career to flourish, that has brought you into a new place of thriving in your life. So, welcome to the show. I cannot wait to dive into this juicy chat.
I'm so excited to be here, Elyssa. We're friends outside of working together, but you're also one of my favorite humans.
Yay!
And I'm
It's a little
excited.
love fest over here.
I'm excited to share. Yeah, I'm here for all of it and happy to share my process and experience with everyone.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think so if you're listening today and you have ever felt overwhelmed in either your business or the career that you have, you're going to love what Trisha has to say about this because I have watched her over this past year. We got to work together in a professional capacity where we were working on nervous system regulation and self-sabotage type things that come up as trauma triggers. And the way that Trisha has navigated all of this, especially in this last year that we were working together, has just been inspiring even to me. And this is what I teach and it's what I do. So I would love to just give the audience an idea of how are your businesses set up? You have a couple of different businesses. You're a really, really busy woman. And this is where I think a lot of our listeners are going to relate to your story. So tell us a little bit about what you do and in general, just the structure. And it can be kind of taxing what you're doing because of the industry that you're in.
Wow. Okay. Where do I start? So I have two main businesses. I actually started last year with three businesses. We've kind of consolidated one, so it's not as much energy from me. My one business, my costume making business, I've had for 15 years. I started it when I lived in Las Vegas. What we do is we service big theatrical productions. So, like you said, Broadway, Cirque du Soleil, Blue Man Group, Disney. Those are my clients on that side. And it took me a long time to get up to that caliber of clientele. But in that industry, everything was built on reputation and being able to deliver. And I got known as like the girl who could make weird, outrageous things for like underwater shows and whatnot. And I always attest that success in that business to my pattern making knowledge. And it's something that so for those who don't know what pattern making is,
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not I don't sew, and it possibly will have somebody listening today who has no idea what pattern making is. So
yeah.
yeah, break it down for us a little bit.
So if you think about, I always explain it this way. So if you know how to sew, that is one skill. And usually when you sew something, you go to the store and you purchase a pattern, which are paper pieces that tell you what to cut out of fabric to put together the garment that you're wishing to create. I think of so that those pattern pieces, that's a pattern. So what I do is I create those from scratch and I teach other people how to create those from scratch and manipulate them so that they become the garment that they want if they can't find it out there in the world, or make it fit their body, which is a huge part of it, and a big thing that people struggle with. It's got this stigma out in the world that it's very intimidating, but because I had such a love and a passion for it, I've continued to study, I've continued to learn and grow my expertise. And that has helped me in the costume career. I used to teach in person, and then I moved to North Carolina about 8 years ago because I just was ready for a change. And my business was to the point where I thought I could leave Las Vegas, which was always the goal. And people still wanted these classes. And I was like, how do I was still going back and forth to Vegas a lot to service clients and whatnot. And I was like, how do I make it the right day and get enough people? And so that's when I started exploring moving into the online space. I was not into social media
I was going to say
whatsoever.
that's quite a jump because you've been behind the scenes this whole time. And
Oh,
I think
yes, very
something that
much so.
probably some of our listeners can relate to is when you are starting to put yourself out there, like, I have this dream, I have this desire. This is different than what I've done. I have to show up and like be present. Like the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome can kind of start to
Oh,
come in.
absolutely.
How was that for you as you went from behind the scenes to front facing of the business?
Yeah, it's something that I still am very aware of, to be honest. But
Which you would never know. You guys need to go follow her on socials because you would never know. Her social media game is incredible. She's incredibly visible and hilarious. And she has reels all the time and she shows up in stories every day. Like you would not know that. So I think that's kind of a nice little peek behind the curtain because
yeah,
someone who just sees what you're putting out there would never have guessed what you just now said.
yeah, it's really interesting. It's funny because a lot of my friends and family who've known me for a long time, they think it's really funny because I was like anti social media. I was like, I don't have time for that. In the costume making industry, it's feast or famine. And so you take it when the work comes, which means I had these quote unquote insane time of year areas where, the spring, like late spring is one of them, and the fall through the winter is our other insane time of year where it's just like you take it all because during the summer it's dead. But when I created the online class, I put it out there, I put it online, I figured out how to do all the things, and it sat there and did nothing. I emailed like my list of people that I had done classes to before, but they had already taken this class. And so they were like, yeah, I wasn't getting any sales. And so at that point, I was like, well, maybe this isn't going to work. Or I need to learn how to market on social media. So I started diving into how can I do this? How can I show up as my business? How can I use this as a tool for work? And really started studying in that. And I actually made it my my New Year's resolution in 2020. It's like I'm 110% kind of girl. We're all in or we're not. So I was like, I'm gonna give it a good college try. It was my New Year's resolution 2020 to learn all of these things. What is a launch? What's a funnel? Like, what are these things that I need to learn and try it and see what happens? So, funny enough, that being 2020, when the world shut down, that we all didn't know, thankfully, I had all of that set up. And because of COVID and what happened in 2020, my live entertainment business disappeared overnight. I hired a business coach at that point with the savings that I had. But my goal was when theater came back that I didn't have to say yes to everything, that I had a little bit of a cushion to do things that I really wanted and that was really interested in, but to also, have something else to rely on for income. We made it to that goal. By the time costumes came back, which was about the end of 2021, was when I started doing shows again, started getting calls again from clients. And that first year after that was like, how much can Trish do? Because
Right? The overworking kicks in because you've got that security now, but it's like
yeah,
when do you turn it off?
yeah,
This is such a relevant thing because I literally yesterday was talking to a client. She's doing really, really well. She has multiple businesses. She also has a full-time job and all these side hustles, and she has zero time for herself
yeah,
and her family. And she's trying to answer the question, how much is enough? And at what point will I stop being afraid that I'm going to lose what I have if I let
right.
something go or if I take a break?
Yeah, I think the real kicker for me was in 2022, April of 2022. 2022 was insane. It was like everybody came back in the costume world and I started doing all the shows and I was doing all of this. I was in Las Vegas opening a Cirque du Soleil show on the Vegas Strip and running my membership as well. Like I had a guest, like I would take dinner breaks and like have host my master
Oh
classes
my
and
goodness.
things. It was pretty insane. I actually was in Las Vegas for 6 weeks for that show, living in the hotel. And I had a room upstairs and we were building everything in the ballroom downstairs. There were days that I didn't go outside. I was working 18-hour days. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I see this juxtaposition with my online space where people are telling me I'm changing their lives. That was a big wake up call for me. I really thought that this would still, like, the online thing would be something that I would grow on the side, get me through those slow times. And then eventually, when I'm tired of costuming, I would go over. But when costuming came back, it would still be number one. And this online thing would be something to fill. And it really became apparent, I think, in 2022 that my online business was definitely where my passion was, and that became my top tier. But I still have Blue Men Group and Disney saying, "Hey, can you make this stuff?"
Yes, because you're so good. You guys have to see some examples of her work. You definitely need to go. We'll put in the show notes how you can follow her on social media. It's incredible the work that she does. You'll understand why Disney and Blue Man Group are at her front step. Front step. And I wanted to touch on this before we move too much past this moment. So you had a moment where you realized that you were putting everyone else's needs above yours. And for anyone listening, for the woman who is overtired, overworked, and her entire life has built her identity around being able to keep other people happy and putting her needs at the bottom of the list. And if you can, you should. And you need to work harder, be better, or do more. That mentality is what eventually just sort of becomes soul killing. And so even if the person listening right now, if you are in a place where you don't have a, very successful Las Vegas costume business, you may have an identity that still revolves around making sure that you're meeting everyone else's needs, all your coworkers, your boss, or everyone in your family of origin, or everybody, your partner, your kids, whatever it is. And we all have this sort of moment, like a come to Jesus moment where it's like, and what is it for? Because I've lost myself, my health, my identity, my joy. It's all down the drain because I am working so hard to make it pull it all off flawlessly for everyone else. And I'm taking the toll. I'm taking one for the team too many times. So at that point, if you can just give us like a quick sort of overview of what you decided to do. And then I also want to come back to a year ago when you and I first started kind of talking about working together. What was it at those two moments where you thought, okay, I need to do something about this?
Yeah, for me, I just they actually wanted me to stay longer. They wanted me to stay an extra 2 weeks, but I put my foot down and said I could only stay the 6 weeks because I had to get back and go down to film for the other business. And I said, there's just no way. Like, I absolutely cannot because I have to teach to the nth degree. And I need to repair from this experience. And I just, the designer I was working with, who is a friend, she was crying and she was like, what can I do to to help you stay? And she was also sad because she's like, I feel like this might be the last time that we do this together. And because that was my test. That was the first show install that I had done since COVID. And I just realized, I was like, if I could do, I would maybe try doing one a year, but definitely not more than that. That was like, this is too much. It's taking away too much from my other business. It's taking away too much of me. So that was kind of the decision that I think in that moment, that result was, this is definitely, my priorities have switched. Like, I definitely made that decision in that moment. After that, I was like, why? It was like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself when I have other options? And so I went, that's where I think it shifted for me. And so shifting into the online business, again, this was all still new to me. I'd only been doing it for 2 years, and it's a different way to get clients. It's a different way to generate income. People say that you get into business to make money, to be successful, but it's actually under the guise of, personal development, because it takes so much of you to show up every day. Because if you're not doing the work, the income's not coming. Like, if I'm not out there marketing my product, people aren't going to find me. I know there's people out there who need my help, but how will they find me if I don't put myself out there? But that was, like we mentioned in the beginning, that was hard for me. I was like, like, this is uncomfortable, and I'm not used to dancing around making silly videos and laughing, and there was another part of it, going into self-sabotage, that was like, this is too fun for it to be work. like this is I'm having fun, and I'm hanging out, and I'm talking about my favorite thing, and I'm doing these silly videos, and yes, it is working. So my coach would remind me, like, that's work. And that's okay that you're enjoying it. It's okay to make yourself things, like my whole outfit that I'm wearing today, that I documented and shared with my audience. It's okay to make things for yourself and use your skills for yourself to share with other people and enjoy that process. Like, that was a whole mindset that I had to change, because I was so used to just being this grueling thing that I was doing. So that was, I think, the shift from 2022, getting into that, and like, okay, mindset is so important. And that was something that I really started to learn. And so I started to focus on my mindset. And one thing, to be successful, I honestly am here to help people. And I think that's why it's working, and sharing what I love. In order to help people, I need to make money so that I can keep helping people in this way. And so money mindset was a big thing for me, because I just, I looked down on, not down on people, but, oh, it must, just little things that we tell ourselves that affect how we show up, and affect how, like, I wanted to be okay with being successful, and be okay with me trying to make more money. And that was a big thing for me. It was like, oh, it must be nice to have all those nice things. Well, if I'm trying to become that, if I'm trying to get to that place with money so that I can help these people, I need to change how I view wealthy people. I need to change how I view having money, how I view getting money, because, I just had all of these limiting beliefs that I was telling myself about what it means to be wealthy, what it means to make money, what it means to be rich. And it was contradicting my efforts to create more income and more wealth for myself, so that I could get to the success that I'm trying to do, so that I can help more people and have those bigger dreams, which I do have and I'm going for. So I really started to once I made that realization, I really tried to hone in on that. And I did a lot of, my coach is very spiritual in the same way that I am. So that is why she is my coach. And so she helped me a lot with that. I read lots of books. I have a program that I dive into, that I digest, like, I just really started to deep dive into my mindset and my money mindset. And I came, in doing all of that, in really boiling down, what are my limiting beliefs? What am I telling myself? What is it that I believe about money that I need to change? And what is the new narrative that I want to tell myself that and believe? Things came up. Where did this thought first come from? Why do I think this way? And for the longest time, I was like, the thing that occurred to me is, wealthy people don't think like non-wealthy people. That became very clear to me. Like, there is a different thought process that they have to people who are not wealthy. Not any badness there, but there's a different process. There's a different way that they think. And I'm like, how can I get to thinking like a wealthy person, so that I can create that for myself and come from a place of good that works for me, that resonates with me, that feels good to me? And so that became my quest. And that was around the time. So as I started to deep dive into this and learn more about what this means, so that I could be more successful in my business, some things came up. Some like trauma, some the way that I grew up, the way that some experiences that I had had that made me a stronger person and how I dealt with those things to get me through, I realized that they could be holding me back and I was going to need more help on kind of unblocking those things and rewriting that narrative to in order, because I was just at the point where, and still am, I don't want anything to hold me back. I am working my, like I said, I don't do anything half mass. Like everything is full on. So it's like, why am I over here making silly videos, putting myself out there, like doing all of this stuff to be successful if there's something inside of me, a belief that I have that would hold me back from that. And so I was really adamant. In fact, my word of the year, we're talking about words of the year for this coming up year, but my word of the year for 2024 was authenticity. Like I just really wanted to be my true authentic self as much as possible. And I want and also come from my highest good in that. And so some things started to come up for me that I needed some help and assistance on working through them and reframing them and honestly just understanding why I had that reaction. And that's where I kind of reached out to you to help me work through that stuff and understand it a little bit better so that I could know what to do and unblock these things that could hold me back from the success I'm working so hard to get.
It's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's so interesting because it's difficult to know what's holding you back because I love this saying that you can't read the label from inside the jar. And so, someone who's as much of a high achiever as you are, you already have magnificent success in all these areas. I think some of us end up having a mindset that if you're successful, then you've got it figured out. If your business is doing well, or if you have the career you want, or if you're helping people, you've got it figured out. So just keep doing the same thing. But I loved what you said about I have these dreams inside of me still. I haven't arrived yet. Like there are these things that are waiting inside of me to be birthed. And I think something that probably a lot of people listening can relate to is whatever it is that caused you to kind of be smaller and take on more hurt because you were the strong one, you were the one that could just, play small and be not need as much and not focus on your needs because we're kind, we're thoughtful, we're servant hearted, we want to be helping people. But when you do that for so long, your dreams get further and further away. And so having the idea that, okay, it's possible to be my authentic self, like you said, your word for last year, it was authenticity. And it's possible to be your authentic self all the time. And that was a concept that was new for me too in my own healing process. That what's really the issue isn't necessarily like you just need to get your mindset right and you just need to, read more books and do more stuff. That's kind of a counterfeit because it's more of the same work harder, be better, do more mentality, right? And so this idea that maybe there's a fundamental shift that can happen in how I see what's happening now and noticing that there's probably a belief if your dreams, if you can relate to this idea that your dreams kind of keep getting farther away or you're not totally, what to do, but you're not actually doing it. That means that there's something deeper in there. And I love that you did all this work. You had your sort of halt moment in 2022 where I can't do this to my body anymore. And I'm going to start saying no. And that's terrifying. And going to start leaning into my passion, which is way too much fun to be allowed. And like, this should not be legal. And then in order to make the passion continue, you also have to put yourself out there in a new way that maybe exposes you. Your nervous system doesn't know that you're not just going to expose all of your innermost workings. And so you're kind of fighting a battle. And for most women, we have been told you need to need less. You need to be less. And then to have this moment where you realize, actually, in order to get those dreams, I need to be my full self at all times. And trauma, when you recognize it in your life, and there are multiple types of traumas, it could be the kind that you recognize as like, this was a big violent thing, or it could be something that's hidden. And you may not actually understand that it was trauma because it felt normal for you. Any of those make the world feel unsafe. And so when that happens, those protector parts come out and they're like, maybe slow down, maybe don't need as much, maybe you should be a little more perfect, maybe you should please some more people so that we can be safe. And that works directly against the dreams that we have. So I love that you came to this point where you're like doing the inner work and you're like, okay, so we're going we're going to, do this sort of inner healing. We're going to work on the mindset. And then you came up against, wow, but these triggers keep coming up for me. And so, what would you say in this last year, as you've been directly sort of looking at this in through the lens of this was trauma in my life and it affected how I see what's happening now? What would you say have been some of the techniques that you found the most helpful or perspectives that you found the most helpful for the person listening who's like, yeah, but what happens when you start working on this? Like, okay, I know I have some trauma, but I don't want to just sit around and talk about it to a therapist and like, drum it all up again, right? So it can be kind of overwhelming thinking about how do I start healing from these mindsets. So what would you sort of say this year meant for you?
I would say, like, the number one thing in working with you that helped me was to have witness. Like you said, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. Like, to just kind of be able to talk about what's happening and like the way I felt, and then have somebody reflect that back to me as to, but it sounds like, this is going on, or it sounds like, so to just see it from a different perspective, because being in it was hard to see the big picture sometimes. And it's like, why am I upset? Even though this is something I've always done, or, this has been normal for so long. And it's like, yeah, it's been normal for so long, but it doesn't mean that that's from my highest good. And in the work that I did, I've done a lot of like inner child work. And one of the programs that I use, and one of the things that I've been doing is, our beliefs, our hardcore beliefs, I really feel like are formed when we are a child, and we learn, we come into this world pure and good, and then through our environment, through our experience with others, it could even just be the way that we see it, just give us this belief that, well, if I act this way. Like, one big thing that hit me was my grandfather was kind of a grumpy old man, and and he, you know, I would just kill him with kindness. And that's kind of how I dealt with a lot of tough characters in my life. And I kind of realized, reflecting back, that it started, I think, with him, with my grandfather. And that's how I always approached him. He was just like, oh, these kids, and like, that was just his personality. And I would be like, oh, grandpa, I love you so much. And I kiss him all over, and I just love on him. And the whole time, you could tell he loved it, right? But the whole time he would be like, oh God, who brought this kid here? Um, and I would just be like, you love it. And I knew that he did. But for me, like, it came to me in a moment, and I was like, I learned at that age that I had to beg for attention and love and respect and all these things. If somebody was being bristly to me, I would just pour more love and respect to them to, make them feel better. And so that was a trait that I picked up when I was very young, and it continued, and I saw it. And especially with the help of, you kind of witnessing and sharing and seeing what you saw in me, I was seeing that in relationships that I had, work relationships, other personal relationships, where it's like, what I deserve, like, so that shift, like, I deserve and I'm worthy to be loved exactly as I am. I shouldn't have to try so hard to get the love and the respect that I desire. And that was a big shift for me. So thinking about when I would come up against triggers and things, to really think, like, go inward and just take a breath. Like, I know that's something that you share a lot. Just take a moment and do 3 deep breaths and just calm myself, which I think it's hard for a lot of us who are overachievers and overworkers. Is like, just keep going, just keep doing more, just keep doing it, and it's like, it's really hard to take that pause and just breathe and be like, I'm actually okay. Nothing, and something else that really has helped me is, like, I could spend all this time and energy worrying about something that may or may not happen. And so I'm spending that time in the moment worrying about it, and spending that energy and making myself like anxious and scared. And it could turn out the best way possible. And I already have given myself so much grief and worry because I think of something that might happen, not something I do all the time. So being pointed out that, like, hey, there's not that. But when those things come up, like going inward and checking in with my inner child, checking in with my little Trish, like, what is going on for you? Like, where is this coming from? Like I said, like realizing that about my grandfather, like that was something, that was one of those realizations. I'm like, oh, because that's how I used to get affection and love. That's how I became one of the most favorite grandkids, like that's how I built that relationship. That's where that comes from. So like looking back and checking in with my inner little girl, because she's still there. Like all those beliefs that I learned as a young child are still there, and they show up in different ways that are not helping me anymore. Like I needed to do that as a little girl because that's how I got on his good side, and that's just one example. But, though that was a belief that I told myself that I carried into my adult life. So looking at what is really affecting me and where maybe I picked that up in the past and checking in on what is it that's really upsetting to me right now? What is it that's really, why is my little girl scared? Like, does she not feel safe? Does she not feel heard? Like, what do I need to, and then learning how to give that to myself. Like, self-love is a huge thing. I think a lot of us, especially as women, aren't taught and we are taught to nurture and do other things. So really leaning into that has really helped me as well. And just learning all these things, that it's okay and it's not selfish to take care of myself, because the more I was trying to get validation and reward and other things from other people, and then being disappointed when I could do that for myself, that was a big shift for me as well. And it's constant though. It's not something that, you hear it once or you're like, oh yeah,
I got that
duh.
down.
You
Yep.
know?
Yeah, I did that. I did that already. I did that
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, and it's not like, I said my word was on authenticity, and it's not, these things come up in your everyday life. It's something that you're experiencing all the time. Anyway, like these things just creep up. Like I do it with work. Like, oh my gosh, but I have all this coming up, and how am I going to get that work done and this work done and this done and da da da. And like I'm like freaking out, worrying about getting it all done, not and then making myself anxious, going back to that worrying before it's even a problem. And spending that time and energy before it's even here. But I'm like, I can tell it's coming. And it's like, okay, wait.
Everybody calm down.
Yeah, let's all calm down. Let's check in and just let's think about what's really going on here and do some deep breathing exercises, check in with my inner self. And so it's not a matter of like, hours and hours studying and writing and journaling. And sometimes that's a thing that I do that's helpful, but it's really just you're living your life in your moment and being aware of things as they come up and going, okay, hold on a sec. Let me think back on the tools of what I've learned. Let me do a little short breathing exercise. Let me just take a pause. If I do, and I do have a lot of support, and that's something that was hard for me because I've always been a rather frugal person, and that goes back to that money mindset of like, I want to change that because wealthy people aren't, they are frugal, but they're also like know when and where to invest. And investing in myself was a hard thing because I'm like, but it's not making more money. But in the end, it really is. It's like it's so thinking about those different things. So I have, and part of working with you was an investment in myself and working through things that I knew if I could take care of myself to a degree and understand what was going on, that is going to help me be more successful. That was going to help me move on to the next level that I was trying to get to. So having support, having tools, having things to look back on, and having like just the knowledge of, okay, like being able to stop yourself and realize in the moment, wait a minute, what is going on right now, and checking in. That's the work. It's not hours and hours, and it's not like taking a class. It's really feeling into what you're experiencing relying on the tools that you learn over time, and leaning on the support that hopefully you've given yourself, or looking for support that can help you in those moments, so that you have all of those things, those tools, those preparations, that awareness that is going to help you work through it. It's not so much a time thing as an awareness thing, and a perspective, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. It can be overwhelming to think about, okay, well, now I got to deal with trauma triggers. Now I got to uproot these mindset issues. And it's like we mentally put that on the checklist, like the to-dos of the next, year or whatever. And it's actually not that. It's really just a shift and an awareness. And once you learn where these things are rooted, once you uncover the root of the block, then you can't unlearn it. You can't unsee it. And it just is a part of how you process then going forward. I love that. Okay, so I know we need to wrap up soon. I wanted to just say, I mean, I've watched you this past year. You've pared down yet even more in this last year that we've been working together. And I have just seen you showing up and confronting yourself and doing the real deep work that it takes to actually let go of even the things that were a good fit up until now. So going into next year, I know you've got room for bigger, new, and exciting things. You've got a retreat in February that's already sold out. You've got
Which sold
our
out in 1 minute,
sold
by
out
the
in
way.
1 minute. Like, are you kidding me right now? And you were able to do that because you had focused in so much on exactly where you were with everything. And then you had pared down your life to really be able to focus on what that required of you. And then is it okay if we talk about the other big thing that's happening next year? Or do we need to leave that for anybody who wants to get on your email list and find out?
You mean PatternCon? We can
Yes.
definitely talk about PatternCon.
Yes.
So,
So
yeah,
you're creating something entirely new next year. And
yeah.
I have watched you clear your life of everything that's no longer serving you this year as we've been working on all that. And you've just really been putting in the time and the self reflection to know this can't come with me into where I'm going. This can't come with me into where I'm going. And doing the excruciating work of letting go and allowing your system to be calm and doing the nervous system regulation. And you've made space for this incredible event. So you want to just give us like the 2-second version of what this is, and then I'm going to give you a chance to let people know where to find you as well, because you guys, even if you have no interest in sewing, which I will admit, I am like terrified of it and I don't feel like I have time for it. And I'm obsessed with Trisha's social media. Like I watch everything she does and I want to be in all her classes because it's just so neat to be in her space. So tell us about PatternCon and tell people where they can find you.
Sure. So, yeah, that is my big, big goal, that I am making broad strokes to becoming a reality next year in some shape or form. Actually, the retreat was me dipping my toe. Is there going to be interest in this? Are people going to be wanting to do this?
And
And
it's
then
sold
it
out
sold
in
out in 1 minute.
160, not even 60 seconds, you guys. Like, are
So,
you kidding
yeah,
me right now?
that was my big, okay, this is the way to go.
People want
But
this. Yes, let's go.
my dream is, so there's a few sewing conventions out there. Most of them are around quilting. There's a couple that, and some of the quilting shows, which I just did one. So I've been attending and teaching at some of these conventions to learn. But there's not a lot focused on garment making, and there's not any that are focused strictly on pattern making. And like I said, I'm a pattern nerd. That's what I'm all about. And I it comes from two different places. Me wanting to play and learn more about this craft that I think is so powerful. And I know that people who love it would love that also. The other thing is, remember going back to the 2022 with the show where I said nobody even knew I existed. Think of all the big designers that Yves Saint Laurent, Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, like all of those. They all have a pattern making team that makes their designs become a reality. I don't. Do you know any of their names? Probably not. So they're the unsung heroes. And I really wanted to create a place where we could all learn about this valuable craft and learn more and just have fun, and learn how there's so many different facets to it. And then also celebrate the power that it has, and the people who are doing it. And so it's kind of a twofold thing for me, because I feel like so often pattern makers, and this super, like, you cannot create a design without the pattern. Like, it's that important and that pivotal. Celebrate that role, highlight it in a convention. So this is my dream. I've been talking about it for a couple of years now. We are putting it into action. I got a logo made this year.
I was gonna say, this is not just a dream. You've been dreaming this for a couple of years, but you actually
Yeah.
have partners who are trying to help you bring this to pass next
Yeah.
year. Like it's
Yeah.
going to
I've been
happen.
collecting people who are helping
You
me.
have a people collection of helpers.
Yeah. So we are going to make it happen. There will be a pattern convention. Every time I talk about it with my followers, they're excited about it. Anytime I mention it to other pattern making teachers, they're excited about it. So I have no idea how to put on a convention. So that is this year's
That's
challenge.
that's you got to hire some who's. That's all that is.
That's right. Hire some who's,
Yep.
figure out what that means. So that's what PatternCon is, and I'm super excited about it. And to believe in myself, to trust in these things that this is actually going to work is a testament to the work that I've been doing with you over the last few years, and and the other support systems that I've had. So very, very excited to see where it all goes. Yeah, big new things. And yeah, and in order to go for those big things, I can't do everything. So there's been some things that I've really needed to think about it, and that's hard. That's the hard part. The hard part is really looking at what's going on and deciding what is going to get you to where you're trying to go and what is holding you back. And that is the hardest part, I would say, about this work.
And you have done all that work. You have done all that work, Trisha. It's been a pleasure just to get to be inspired by your processes and really being honest and doing the work. I love that so much.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
okay, so let's say we want to know about PatternCon. We want to get on the list to find out when this is beautiful thing is happening, and they want to follow you. So how can people find you and really start
Yeah.
to follow what you're doing?
So my handle on socials, and I'm mostly on Instagram and YouTube, is creative. It's actually on Instagram, it's creative.costume.academy. And YouTube, it's at Creative Costume Academy. I also have creativecostumeacademy.com. Pretty much links, everywhere. I always post on the bottom of my YouTube videos all the links of where you can sign up for the newsletter and get freebies once a month and know of all the events and things that. And I like to give away stuff, and I like
You
to
give
do
a
free
lot of
stuff.
stuff away. You guys, seriously, go follow her.
So there, even if you're just kind of curious, there's a lot to dabble in, that you can do for free. And a lot of people, that's what they do. And we host these big, fun, huge events a couple times a year. If you're wanting to learn about fitting, if that's something that is, because I know that's something that people struggle with. So yeah, Creative Costume Academy is where to find me everywhere.
And we will link all of this in the show notes, you guys. So just you
Thank
can
you.
take a look at those as well. Thank you so much, Trisha. This was amazing. I love being in your space. I love talking with you. And I really appreciate you kind of taking the curtain and just letting people see behind the scenes. This is what it is for somebody who is so incredibly successful as you are. And you're still doing the daily work to really make sure that you're not getting in your own way and that you're able to
Yeah.
expand to the level that is really your highest and best. So thank you so much. It's just such
Thank
an honor
you.
and a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor for me to be here, and you guys, everybody can do it. And
Yay.
the hard part is not the work. The hard part is being honest with yourself and listening, taking the time to listen to
Mhm.
yourself and finding those tools. So, and that's something that you're helping with, which I love that I get to see you grow and help people with this as well, because it's helped me so much in my life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I hope guys really enjoyed that deep dive look into what this looks like in the wild with when you're looking at nervous system regulation, when you're looking at what kinds of limiting beliefs are coming up. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what your industry is. It doesn't matter if you have a business or you're working 9 to 5. We all, especially if we're high achieving women, we're dealing with these things every day. And there are so many wonderful stories. This is just one of those incredible stories that I am so honored to get to help share on this podcast. And Trisha, we're just so grateful you were here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elyssa. So happy.